Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining the latest in our Nexus webinar on what food and drink businesses need to know. My name is Jaya Calder from Highlands and Islands Enterprise, and I'm going to be running your webinar this afternoon. Just a couple of little bits of housekeeping before I pass to my colleague Andrea. We always record these series of recordings, but we will share it with you. The other thing is, it's just to encourage your involvement. Although we can't see you, and as an attendee you're automatically put on mute, it's quite the reverse. We actively are looking for your engagement this afternoon. So there's a couple of ways that we can get you involved. You'll see a question box. Please use that throughout the whole of the session, whether it's just questions or observations or any way of getting in touch with us. And then when we come to a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar, if you want to come off mute and speak to our speakers, then we'd be happy to do that, and you'll see a raised hand. So when we come to the question time, I'll invite you to raise your hand and then I can take you off mute. So let's get started and pass you on to Andrea. Andrea.
Thank you, Jaya. So welcome to today's webinar, and I'm Andrea McCall from the Life Sciences team at Highlands and Islands Enterprise in Inverness. Just to give you a bit of background, the Nexus webinar series is an opportunity to find out more about what's going on in our life sciences, health and technology community and make connections. And in case you don't know, Nexus is our co-working space in Solaster House on Inverness campus, where life sciences and technology companies co-locate and collaborate. And Nexus is funded by the Inverness and Highland City Region Deal and ERDF. And also funded by the same funders is the Highland Food and Drink Innovation Network. So we're delighted today that the network and Nexus are collaborating together to deliver this webinar within the food and health agenda. And this agenda, food and health, was identified by the network as being an area of focus and opportunity. So my colleague Natalie Dillon is here with me today. She's part of the High Food and Drink team and is responsible for the network. And she's also joined by David Gass, who's the appointed contractor to deliver this program. So just to introduce our main speakers today, really, you can see we have Joanne Burns and also Katrina Little joining us today. So we're delighted they will be able to give us a bit more of an insight into how food and drink businesses in the Highlands and Scotland can reformulate and make their products and recipes healthier. So I'm handing straight over now to David to take you through another little bit of introduction before we go over to our main speakers. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Can everybody hear me? It's just to say very much look forward to the webinar today. I'm from the Highland Food and Drink Innovation Network. So this is really a network that's set up to encourage innovation across the food and drink sector in the Highlands. We work across the industry and we've been keen to look at any projects or developments from the companies around anything that increases companies' productivity, increases new market collaborations, awareness of new technologies, etc. So it's very much driven by the industry and by the companies. And the two final bullet points you'll see, we've been tasked to look at the what companies really want from the innovation network. They are both in terms of the tech hub that's planned for the Highland region. We're looking at what are the key themes that companies would find exciting and want to engage with, but also we've been very keen that we don't duplicate what's already around in terms of innovation support, both in the UK and in Scotland. So part of the network and the tech hub is to link into the expertise that's across Scotland and the UK, and delighted Joanne and Katrina are here to share that expertise with us. In terms of where the session today came from, we did a consultation just before Christmas. We went out to companies across the Highland region, really to ask them what they would like from a tech hub, but also very importantly, what are the kind of areas that they want to see the tech hub support, where do they feel are the opportunities for Highland region in food and drink. So a number of the respondents. We had 55 to 60 companies feedback into the survey, and the top theme of all was food and health. And I know this is quite a wide theme, whether that be around just companies aware that this is a growing trend, market trend, and how do they take advantage of that opportunity, whether it's more plant-based meals, whether it's just a healthy diet. We had a lot of companies that were asking us about how can we capitalise on the quality and the range of the natural ingredients and products in the region, and both from sea and from the land, and the nutritional value of many of the Highland products. But also, and probably most commonly across the companies, was really where do we start? Where do we start this process? How do we make our products and recipes healthier and capture some of that emerging market? So really looking forward to the webinar today, to hear your thoughts and also hear from Joanne and Katrina in terms of the reformulation agenda that for many is a starting point. I'm going to hand over to Joanne.
Okay, I'm just going to give Joanne. There we go, Joanne, that should be you now. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, David. Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me today to discuss the importance of reformulating commonly consumed products to impact the dietary health of people in Scotland. As you can see there, my name is Joanne Burns, and I'm the Reformulation for Health Manager at Food and Drink Federation Scotland. During this presentation, we'll cover why reformulation is needed, what it actually is to the food industry, as well as how we can support food businesses, and looking at common challenges faced by businesses when considering reformulation. Now, Jaya is just going to pop up a quick poll so we can see where some of you are in terms of reformulation.
That's your poll live, and responses are being collected, Joanne.
Fantastic.
So you can let me know when you want to close the poll.
Okie dokie, sorry, apologies, Jai, I couldn't see anything in the screen there to say it was coming up.
Yeah, okay.
I'm more than happy for you to close it just in the next couple of seconds. That would be fantastic.
Okay, I'm just closing the poll now, thanks. And then I'm going to share it for you. And you should be able to see that now. Okay. For the audience, we have yes at 13%, no at 63%, and don't know at 25%.
Okie dokie, perfect. Thank you. That really helps us gauge where a lot of you are in terms of considering reformulation. So just to move on.
And that should be you back.
Okay, perfect. Okay, can you all see my slide again?
Yes.
Great, excellent. So just to have a look at some recent health perspective results, we can see that the majority of adults from that first sentence there think that their health is good and that they have a healthy diet. But there's an obvious and very worrying disconnect, as the majority of people in Scotland are also overweight, with 2/3 of us being overweight, which includes 28% who are actually classified as obese. From a recent study, product reformulation was shown as the most effective way to tackle poor dietary health, and it's encouraging to see that consumers also support this aim, with 82% of consumers in Scotland actively supporting food producers in limiting the amount of fat, salt and sugar in the food that they produce. And the bottom two statistics there are ones that I find very encouraging. So almost 3/4 of consumers feel that they would continue to buy the same amount or more from a company that reformulated their products to make them healthier. And over 3/4 of Scottish adults indicated that their perception of a company would stay the same or improve if it reformulated their products. So it really shows that there's a very strong consumer drive for industry to be helping to tackle some of these health challenges. Now, as I've said, the impacts of dietary health and obesity are profound in Scotland, and dietary-related health diseases such as coronary heart disease, certain cancers and type 2 diabetes remain stubbornly high. To help improve this situation, back in 2018, the Scottish Government published a Healthier Future strategy, which outlined their aims and ambitions for diet and healthy weight. One action of the strategy was the creation of my role to support Scottish SME food and drink businesses to reformulate commonly consumed products. In Scotland at the moment, over 95%, I think it's almost 97% now, of food businesses are classified as SMEs, and they can often lack the technical knowledge and support that larger businesses may have internally. The Reformulation for Health programme works to connect businesses with the appropriate support or deliver it ourselves, which may include links to funding opportunities, academic support, such as what Katrina's going to speak about in a moment, and we can also offer guidance on technical issues. But most importantly, to highlight, all our support and guidance and help is completely free, and it's open to all, not just people who are members of FDF Scotland. Because I'm funded directly by Scottish Government, I'm open to work with any food and drink businesses in Scotland. Now, what is reformulation? If I got a pound for every time somebody asked me that, I would be lying on a beach somewhere. But when we consider what reformulation is, it can often be very confusing because there's so many different headlines out there in press and media about what health and reformulation actually means. Put simply, it's just about altering a recipe, the composition of the recipe, or looking at the process to improve the nutritional profile of a product. And when I talk about reformulation for health, it's based upon these 8 key areas, and we deliver these based upon the Scottish Dietary Goals. Now, the Scottish Dietary Goals are the information that's contained within the brackets and are highlighted in the navy. So you'll see there, we aim to reduce fat, salt and sugar in foods that people are producing, as well as positive nutrition. So we also look at increasing fibre and fruit and veg. By increasing fibre and fruit and veg, we can also, and whole grains, we can also help to reduce dietary health diseases, as well as by reducing some of the other nutrients we've mentioned. Over the years, we have seen a gradual increase in portion sizes by some sectors, and consumers are now driving food manufacturers to consider reducing those portions back down. And we also look at the importance of product information to consumers, so looking at things such as cooking methods and serving suggestions on the packaging of food as well. You will note at the moment, with these 8 areas of reformulation, we don't specifically focus on allergen-free products or gluten-free products as an area for development for reformulation for health. We purely focus on these 8 key areas. And obviously there's no one size fits all. Depending on what type of business you are, reformulation to you may well be reducing fat and salt. For example, if you're a butcher, a baker may be interested in reducing portion size and sugar. So it's really very varied and very individual to each business, and that's why we work with businesses on an individual basis to design a bespoke action plan for them to move forward. So since March 2019, the Reformulation for Health programme has engaged with over 450 businesses from a wide variety of events and different opportunities, and we're actively supporting 40 businesses to improve the nutrient profile of their products, with a range of sectors from butchery and bakery through to ready meals and ice cream. But the success of the programme to date has really been due to involvement with the whole food system. We work with everybody from ingredient suppliers to procurement teams and food service sites as well. But what's key is we also look for solutions to common industry challenges through engagement with trade bodies. So for example, rather than working with individual maybe butchers across Scotland, we work with their trade organisation, the Scottish Craft Butchers, speak to their members, learn about common challenges, and then we can work back down through the food system to work with ingredient suppliers for them to maybe create a new product that will help address that challenge. And then that one solution can go out to possibly hundreds of butchers and gives them a solution that they can access. Now, I thought you would find it interesting to see how we support food businesses on their reformulation journey. Now, this process, our Reformulation for Health Action Plan process there, is very similar no matter what size or sector of business that you're based within. We work with each business to develop their reformulation action plan and work through each stage with them, ensuring that all baseline information is recorded and that we benchmark their products against the market. After considering each aspect of our recipe, we look for common ingredients that may impact on several ranges to trial them with reformulating. If a business wishes to access sensory panels, we can link them with specialists in that area, such as Katrina and the team at QMU, or guide them to current nutritional targets, such as the new salt targets for 2024 or the new food and drink in schools regulations, if that's something specific that they're looking to develop their business into. Now, if you don't mind, Jaya, do you mind popping up, just while we're talking there a little bit about ingredient suppliers, do you mind popping up poll number 2, please?
Okay, that's your second poll, launching and distributing and collecting responses. And Joanna's sharing her screen, so she won't see the poll, but the poll that you're seeing is, are you happy to explore healthier ingredient options with your suppliers? Yes, no, or don't know. So we've got, most people have voted now, Joanne, so there's a bit of movement. So let me know when you'd like me to close the poll.
I'm fine with you just closing it in a second or two, please, Jaya. Thank you.
Okay, that's the poll closed now. And the results, as you can see, yes, 83%, no, 0%, and don't know, 17%. Thanks.
That's really good to see such a high percentage of you having that kind of relationship with your ingredient suppliers, because very often your ingredient suppliers will already have a solution to a lot of common challenges. They very often do have healthier alternatives within their ranges, and sometimes it's just asking and getting some samples to trial within your products. Okay, dokie. So just moving on. So when we decide with a business what nutrients they wish to work with, it's important that we consider all of the practical implications of altering a recipe, as often ingredients such as salt or sugar may play many roles in the end product, such as shelf life, texture, colour, or as a raising agent, and any reduction or replacement needs to take each role of the ingredient into account. For example, one business we're working with at the moment is an ice cream supplier, and we've had to spend quite a lot of time looking at the different freezing points of different sugars and different sugar replacement products, considering the texture and mouthfeel of the ice cream, looking at as it melts, the stability of the product, does it stay smooth or is it a bit grainy, and looking at the structure. So it's really important with each reformulation project we're working with that we look at each of these areas for the businesses that we're working with. But as well as the practical challenges of each ingredient, we also need to consider the perspectives of the business and the consumer when it comes to altering any product. We recently carried out a study back in the middle of 2020, and we asked consumers and businesses about what their attitudes and perspectives were on reformulation. And the top 2 areas that came out from both consumers and businesses were taste and price. As consumers, we're happy for products to be reformulated as long as they still tasted good and didn't cost too much more. Whereas for a business, they were more concerned about the taste profile of new products and ingredients, as well as any possible additional costs for new innovative ingredients and trials. Obviously, if a business is looking at considering portion size reduction, there's sometimes additional costs, maybe looking at altering packaging and labelling and things like that, for example. So when we looked at portion size, the top 2 results were slightly different. Now, given some of the attitudes that we've looked at already in terms of from a consumer perspective and a business, I thought it was interesting for us to highlight the main reasons that businesses identified as drivers for helping them to reformulate. And you'll see the top 2 reasons there that are highlighted in that red box are really based around social responsibility drivers. So it's businesses felt it was important that they help make people's diets healthier, as well as believing it was their social responsibility to do so, which is absolutely fantastic. When we look at why businesses are interested in reformulating, that they're the 2 main aims looking at their future. And I was very interested to find the next 2 ones were a bit more sales focused, with areas that I thought would be higher up, such as increasing sales and meeting industry targets, being slightly lower down that table. Now, we will have a link later on in the presentation to some of the current industry targets in terms of nutritional targets, maybe around sugar and calories and salt. We do have links to them later on in the presentation, so feel free to link to those after the presentation. Now, within the Reformulation for Health project, we do manage a variety of different areas of work that support SME food businesses to reformulate across Scotland. And one such project is the Reformulate project, which is based on the 8 reformulation steps that we looked at earlier. And it was developed to ensure that businesses across the whole of Scotland were engaged in making changes to support the health of their community and their customers. I was always very aware that we didn't want it to become very central belt focused, and wanted to make sure that any changes we were making to products and to businesses impacted on communities across the length and breadth of Scotland. The project's aims last year were to engage 10 food businesses per local authority to start a reformulation journey, and that has been expanded to at least 20 businesses per local authority moving forward. So that would obviously give us over 640 food businesses improving the health of their customers and their communities in Scotland. When we first started, we engaged very much with the local authorities and environmental health teams. Due to a lot of their deployment to COVID response duties, we're also now looking at linking with the Scotland Food and Drink regional food groups, as they're very much the feet on the ground and know who a lot of their local businesses are, and those that would be more proactive in taking forward a reformulation project. In addition to supporting local communities, the Reformulate project also allows SME food businesses to learn from each other. We can learn with peer-to-peer learning and look at common challenges. We can assist with social media and case studies, and each business that completes a Reformulate journey will also be recognised with a certificate of completion, along with a local press campaign to highlight the work that that business has done to address dietary health challenges within their area. Now, to support food businesses to reformulate, back at the end of December 2020 into January 2021, we launched the Reformulate Challenge Fund, and that allowed us to financially support just very small grants. It allowed us to financially support a wide variety of businesses across Scotland to help them with some of the additional costs that sometimes come about with reformulation. So it allowed them to maybe access some nutritional testing or money towards marketing and promotion, or even sometimes looking at some extra equipment or kind of kit that they needed to help maybe look at lowering portion sizes and things like that. That fund has now stopped, but we are looking at starting that up again later on in 2021. And if you're interested, I will be sharing it through David and the rest of the network. So hopefully when we run it later on in the year, I'll see some applications coming through from some of you, which would be fantastic. So one final method and another way that we support businesses as they start to think about reformulation is our reformulation advice tool. And this allows businesses to enter some basic information about their business and their aims in making products healthier. And the tool then generates some starter information to consider, such as guidance on current nutritional targets, as well as links to relevant guidance to do with the specific nutrient that you're looking at reducing. Once the survey has been completed, as I say, you then get sent your advice, and we will then get in contact with you to look at each project in more detail and to support you to create a reformulation action plan if that's something that you choose to take forward. Now, I'm aware I've just given you a brief whistle-stop tour on reformulation. I could honestly talk about this for hours. What I would like to leave you with is that we're here to support you, and we're here to guide businesses and to help you. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to making your products healthier, but by making small changes, we can all work together to make a big difference to the health of people in Scotland. Here are the links that I spoke about earlier on, and these are the links to some of the current nutritional targets that retailers, procurement teams, and consumers are beginning to look for. So we've got the classed as the Public Health England sugar reduction and also calorie reduction programme, but these are UK-wide targets. They're not specifically for England, as well as the salt reduction targets and food and drink in schools regulations, which are coming into action in April 2021. So thank you very much for your time. I'll take a breath now. If you wish to learn any more about reformulation or want to get in contact with me after the event, please use those contact details there. Thank you.
Joanne, would you like me to launch your final poll if you're interested, or do you want to leave that?
Absolutely. Sorry, I've got that highlighted right in front of me and I totally forgot, Jaya.
That's because you're saying Joanne doesn't have the same view as what we do. So I'm just going to launch the final poll, and it's distributing the poll. Are you interested in our free support to develop an action plan on your specific reformulation aims? So the poll is distributing now. We are collecting responses, and I'll just give it a couple of seconds. We've got 34% have voted. So if you're, I'll wait till we get over 40%. So just click on one of those boxes, yes, no, or don't know. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now and share the results. So we've got yes, 21%, no, 26%, and don't know, 53%. So thank you for that.
Fantastic,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thanks, and I believe that we're going to Katrina now.
Yeah, let me just find my slide. Okay. Okay, guys, hopefully you can all see my slides now. Oh, hang on. There we go. Okay, hopefully you can see my slides. My name's Katrina Liddell. I work for Queen Margaret University. Give me just a second, I can see that. And what we're going to do today is just have a chat about the logistics of how you might do your reformulations. So first thing to notice is not to panic. It's not as hard as it might seem. I know there's a lot of information and I know it may seem really daunting, but for those 63% of you that weren't involved in reformulation and the 25% of you sitting on the fence, do you know what? It's not as hard as it seems. For all the people that think, oh, it's too hard, or don't know where to start, or it costs too much, or my customers are going to run away, what we're here for is to try and placate you and say, do you know what? That's not going to happen. So these are the solutions we can get in order to help you. Now, whilst it's not a technical presentation to show how you might look at every single type of reformulation you can do, because that's not possible in the 10 minutes or so we have here, but it might just give you an idea of the process involved and how we might help with that. So, first of all, a little bit about us. We are quite a small team, not perfectly formed, but we are full-time food technologists, so we've got a huge breadth of experience in this type of project, qualified nutritionists and long-term expertise in NPD across the food industry sectors, and also EPD, which is existing product development and reformulation. Okay, so our experience is in ingredients. We've got a wide network of suppliers and ingredient knowledge, and that could be across any part of the food and drink sector. So it might be in bakery, it might be in dairy, it might be in ready meals, it could be in soft drinks or alcohol released drinks. It could be in sports and weight management. That's a particularly interesting project just now for everybody trying to lose the extra COVID weight. It could be plant-based. There's a huge amount of projects being going on vegan products, and also free from. The main challenge is that where we're looking at all projects, we're looking to not add any unnecessary sugar, fat, salt, etc., but still make it actually a good product. So that's our main challenge. Okay, so what you've got to consider when you're reformulating it. So there's quite a lot of legislation out there, as Joanne mentioned, and guidance for your particular sector. So for instance, there might be very specific sector information on some groups and not on others. So the sugar tax for drinks would be a good example of that, or sugar levy as it's called. So your knowledge of ingredient and access to ingredient solutions, that's your suppliers. Your suppliers are going to be a really good source of information for you, but sometimes they don't actively come and meet all of the clients, so it's worth a conversation with your suppliers already. It might have an impact on your cost and yield, and we'll show you how to limit that impact. You might find it's got an impact on perceived quality. Now, you may think that automatically reformulating something will make it taste less nice. Now, that's not actually true. There could be all sorts of reasons why it could be actually preferred product. So again, that's something to consider. So, and also how you go about it and what your choice of methodology might be. And we call this pick your battles. So here we've got a lovely picture of a cupcake. So your options would be, if you were going to say you were going to reformulate this cupcake for a reduction in sugar, you might decide to make the cupcake a little smaller. So it might go from 200 grams to 180 grams, which means you've taken out 10% of the total calories and all the nasties as well, like your sugar, your fat, etc. You could decide to just take down sugar throughout the whole product. So say you take down 10% in each component. Now you'll see there's different components. There's a cake bit, there's a sprinkles bit, and there's your icing bit. Now your sprinkles are going to be 100% sugar. So any way that you can kind of try and reduce those is going to have an impact. But the majority of your sugar is going to come from your icing there. So maybe it's just a question of just concentrating on your icing, and you might find that that's a much quicker win than trying to reduce it across the whole product, because you probably have a much bigger impact doing it that way. You might look at specific components, like I said. So you might decide that taking down the icing from 50 grams to 40 grams might give you enough of an impact. Or you might be, if you don't want to reduce the overall portion size, you might rejig the balance so that it becomes more cake and less icing. And you might find that that's enough of an impact in sugar reduction to be able to meet your target you want to make. Okay, so how can we help you? Obviously, we've got a lot of experience in product development and reformulation. We can carry out consumer panels. We've got a large consumer panel that can come and test products to assess if they're acceptable or not. We can give you quite a lot of technical advice and analytical testing, which we'll come on to in a second. If you're looking for your team to maybe have a little bit of training in how you reformulate, or how you might set up your own tasting panel, for instance, we can help you do that. We've got nutrition expertise, and we've also got some research projects as well. Excuse my phone going off there. Okay, so how do we do this? We might start with an NPD brief or an APD brief. So you might say, okay, I want to do X. We'll take a look at that and have a look and see if it's feasible, and show you ways of looking at, maybe slightly different ways of looking at it, and show you how you can get to where you need to get to by complying with all of the legislation and still actually get an acceptable product. It could be that you don't want to increase cost, for instance, and we can look at ways which you can do that. We can help you source ingredient suppliers and manufacturers if you need to get something co-packed. We can look at how you can optimally formulate something so that it meets your nutritional targets but also tastes great. We'll get client approval, and then we can also do your technical assessment and your organoleptic assessment, which is what it tastes and smells and the texture is like. Okay, so we can help you do NPD, as we said, also do some blue sky stuff if that's your bag. Benchmarking against what we call competitive set. If you are a cake manufacturer and your product has 30% sugar and your competitors have only got 20% sugar, maybe that's something we need to look at. But also for taste and flavour, etc. But nutritionally, you might want to see how you compare, because as more consumers are looking at packs, you might want to consider that. Okay, so again, looking at EPD to see where your formulation targets matching with your products and allergens especially. We've got a really good knowledge of ingredients, as I've said, and we can also help with scale up, because sometimes just because you've made a change to your formulation doesn't necessarily mean it's going to scale up well. So for instance, if you look at sugar, as we've mentioned, it can have lots of different functionalities other than just making a product sweet. So again, we can help with that. You might need some co-packers, as mentioned. Functional health products and ingredients, there's a huge amount of ingredients out there that make all sorts of claims about how they can help you your formulation challenge. We are completely unbiased, and we can tell you what we've had experience on and what works and what doesn't. You might decide to do some nutritional. You may have some software on site that can look at your nutritional programs. NutriCalc is a great program. It's quite expensive though. If you don't want to go to the expense of having such an expensive nutritional package, we can help you look at alternatives for that also. And also we can help you do your pack labeling and your health claims information, should you be making those kind of claims. Okay, so we can also help you do some consumer testing to see if it matches. It's not an essential thing to do, but if it's something you want to consider. We've got about 650 people from local community that come from all walks of life that can come in and do panels for us, and you can filter those to specific requirements. So if you want to only get people that are age 50 and above, or you only want women, or you only want people at shopping Marks and Spencers, or you only want those kind of things, all those kind of things, can do any kind of lifestyle questions like that. Okay, and that's our Century Suite, which I'm based in just now, but that is a nice pretty picture of showing you lots of different colours. Okay, so what else can we offer? We've also got quite a bit of kit in the uni that is really useful for looking at formulation, but it's not necessarily available in manufacturers. So a couple of examples there would be the texture analysis kit that we've got on the left-hand side of the bottom, and that might be useful if you're looking at scaling of a product over time, if you're going to reformulate without sugar, for instance, to see how it amends that. Things like water activity meters, so you can look at potential ambient shelf life situations. Also, this is a really good way of looking at objective results against the subjective of your taste panels, or which are obviously very subjective. This gives you an absolute objective figure that you can analyse over time. I've just put a few examples of some pictures we've got here, Silverson mixtures and homogenizers, etc., that might help you. Say you want to reduce the fat content in your ice cream or your sauces or such and such. And lots of things like microscopes, as you would expect to find. We've also got a pasteurizer, which might help if you want to do some small scale production in there. Okay, so nutrition. A couple of our team, 2 of the 4 are qualified nutritionists, but we've all got quite a good background in nutrition anyway, because most of our projects are quite nutrition related. And as I've mentioned, we can provide clients with a nutritional software program that is quite simple, and it allows you to be able to see the impact of any formulation change before you actually make it, to see if it actually meets your target. It's much quicker doing it that way than it is to make the product, then send it out for nutritional analysis to find out you're not quite there yet, or it gives you an idea of what your impact is going to be before you start making samples. Okay, we can do some CPD programs. Or all sorts of subjects. Come and find us. We can help you on those, and also on the equipment we've got in the lab as well, if that's of interest for you. Okay, that was a very whistle stop tour, I know. I was trying to speak very fast. If there's any questions you want to ask, these are some of our clients that we've worked with. Any questions you want to ask, please feel free to put some comments in the chat box just now, or ask questions, or if you want to send us a direct email, please feel free to do that as well, or give us a call. We're here to help. We're hopefully here to help to make it an easier process for you, and it shouldn't be too daunting. Okay, sorry if I've spoken very fast.
Thank you, Katrina. That was great. And thank you, Joanne, as well, obviously, for your presentation. So we're going into the question session now. So if all of you want to put your webcam on again, I think also David and Natalie and Joanne, obviously, if you're around. Great. And we're happy to take any questions from the audience. So you can either type them into the question box, or you can raise your hand and Jaya can take you off mute if you wanted to ask anything directly.
It would be great if we could speak to people directly, and we've actually got more time. We're always short for a Q&A, but we deliberately wanted to put a lot of time in so you could actually speak to everybody. So, David, is there anyone that were you wanting to particularly take anyone off mute? Is there anyone that you wanted to hear from?
Yeah, well, I won't start picking on people, but Ian Richards, I don't know if he was on the session today, but I know it's an area that Ian's looked at a lot with his company.
Okay, Ian, I'm going to take you off mute, and then what you have to do is just mute at your end. So Ian Richards, if you can unmute at your end, because you're self-muted, then hello, good afternoon, Ian.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, that's perfect. Welcome to the webinar.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, David.
Hi, Ian.
I mean, from our perspective, we're a food manufacturing business based in Dingwall, and we manufacture prepared meals, ready meals for the food service and the retail sectors. And predominantly our product is frozen, about 90% of it is frozen. And our whole remit for our business is around a provenance story, being a local provenance story. around sustainability, both in terms of how we manufacture, but also in terms of the ingredients that we source from our suppliers and how they behave in a sustainable way. And the final part of it, which probably ties in more tightly with the two presentations today, is a well-being story, which for us, we've treated it so far as making sure that we don't put anything artificial into our products. So it's, if there is a color, it would be a natural color. If there is a stabilizer, it would need to be a natural stabilizer, that type of thing. And we're also trying to look at the nutritional values of our products. So much of what you've been talking about in terms of the reformulation side of it is quite interesting, as yet we haven't really looked at the specifics of healthier eating. Our story has been a much more general well-being one. But I think one of the bigger issues we've found is really trying to find natural alternatives for some of the things that you might naturally include within a product. We're using a lot of small suppliers, so as a result, they don't have the technical backup to be able to explain to us how potentially to include their product in ours. So as we go from a development kitchen scale into a manufacturing scale, we do experience difficulties, and the scale-up process can be extended and costly, as all of you know better than I do. So it's been interesting to hear that there's some technical know-how. Technical know-how is in short supply for us. So food technologists are kind of like gold dust for us, and certainly up here in the Highlands, it's quite hard work. But there are one or two around. Yeah, so I think, David, that was just a general ramble, I think. But specifically, I think the whole issue that you raise here about reformulation is a big deal for us, and it's where we now need to go as we develop our business into the next generation, the next wave of product.
If I could just pop in here, it's actually really common for people to want clean label options, and there are lots around. The kind of advice we might give someone, if you're a biscuit manufacturer, you might give a slightly different advice to someone like Foxes than we would for a craft baker, because Foxes might be buying things in pallet loads and container loads, whereas your average craft baker might only want a bag or two. But we can gear the solutions accordingly. But there's lots of clean labels out there, clean label options out there, because that's not really what people want. So don't be disheartened. There is solutions out there.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So I was just going to say, just also picking up from what Ian was saying, one of the things that's come back a lot from companies across the Highlands is that where can I source the healthier ingredients, both from the region itself and further afield as well. So if that's an area that's a kind of common concern for companies, that would be good to hear.
I mean, quite often you'll have big manufacturers that are used to using supplying lots of large quantities, but quite often these suppliers also have agencies that are dealing with suppliers in smaller, with clients with much smaller requirements. So not in every case, but in quite a lot of cases. So, and again, those agencies are much more likely to be shipping to the likes of the Highlands or some of the more geographically distanced than maybe central London or something like that.
Yeah, I was just going to add there as well, Ian. If you're looking at expanding your ready meal offering into retailers, if you want, we can give you some advice and guidance in terms of the nutritional targets that your retailers will be expecting to meet, and that might help you drive and kind of create your reformulation aims.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a very interesting situation at the moment in regards to the whole conversation around portion size. Where with this conversation was, how do we reduce, one way of improving the health benefits of the product is to reduce the portion size. Yes. At the moment, in conversations with some of the major UK retailers, that's the exact opposite direction to the conversation we're having, which is, as you put a product forward, the comparison is always, well, it needs to be a 400 gram product, needs to be a 420 gram product. Rather than getting into the portion reduction side of it, which has both health and cost benefits for everybody concerned. So that is a slightly difficult one, and it's one that we're wrestling with currently with a couple of potential customers. And I think the other thing that we struggle with is compound ingredients. So if we suddenly if we use, I don't know, let's say we put Worcester sauce into something, there's a whole load of stuff in Worcester sauce that you really don't want to be declaring within your labeling. And how do you find an alternative to that, and other ingredients as well, because there are just hidden things that you don't add, and consumers really don't think about when they buy a particular individual product. But when you put it into your product, it suddenly gives you an ingredient list that reads like a chemistry shop, and it's difficult to find alternatives to those.
Yeah, I agree. Worcester sauce also has the disadvantage of having your allergen of fish in it, which usually people want to remove. But yeah, again, that's something that is quite an easy one to do if we have a variety of ingredients that are much more clean label. So and none of these are insurmountable. Trust me. And
I trust you.
It may well be, and it may well be that your Worcester sauce has ingredients that you don't need anyway. They're just because it's designed to be a Worcester sauce rather than a component of your ready meal. And you could maybe just pull the things out that are the ones that are the flavour drivers, such as the tamarind or the salt and that kind of stuff, and rather than physically adding Worcester sauce itself.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good advice.
Ian, thank you very much. I genuinely believe when we hear from a member of our audience, it just brings it alive. It absolutely does. So it's been a pleasure taking you off mute. Now we've got another couple of questions in, and this is for the panel. Do you have any experience of seeking research and development tax credits for innovation and research in reformulation? And that's an open question to the whole panel.
I'll jump in here. Yes, we have often guided businesses that we've worked with towards the R&D tax credits available for businesses who are altering their processes and recipes. I would say it depends on the project that you're working towards, but there's absolutely no harm in exploring that as an option if you're considering reformulation. If there's something more specific, I can absolutely, if you want to message after the webinar, I can absolutely see if I can find an answer for you if it's a specific challenge business is having. But no, R&D credits are a great opportunity for businesses who are reformulating to reclaim some of those costs.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, yeah, we've had experience of this. If anybody wants to come and contact us, we can talk you through it. Again, it's not as complex as it could be when you're dealing with these things. It's a little bit of paperwork, but and a little bit of as you go along, you might need to give some updates, etc. But yeah, absolutely, it's something that's doable.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've got another question in, and it's from a business that's a fairly young in age. What are the first steps that we can take as a company to make my products healthier? And that's to everybody on the panel.
Happy for I feel like I'm talking all the time, but yeah, it really depends on the product and your particular goals. Some projects will be a piece of cake and some will be a bit more in detail, and it's a bit about knowing
literally a piece of cake.
Literally a piece of cake. Yeah, so it really depends on your target, but it's not as complex as really it's a question of looking at what you need to do and getting some advice on how you might do it. And then either Joe or I could just talk you through what's required. Sometimes there'll be a bit of funding, sometimes not. But it really depends on how much time you personally want to put into it and how much time you want to give it to someone else to have a look at. So all these options, either Joe or I could help you with that.
I would also add, just from the Innovation Network point of view, I mean, part of the role of the network is to try and help the companies source funding and source ways of doing things if you're looking at different ways and innovative ways of doing things. So we've done that with a group of companies around logistics, we've done it around supply chain, around digital. So again, very much if it's the individual company, we can help and work with Katrina and Joanne and others. And also if there's groupings of companies that really want to do something around this agenda, really keen to also hear from them.
Yeah, do you know what, absolutely echo what David was just saying there. I mean, I know in my presentation I spoke about the Reformulate project. If that was something that we could maybe expand to the network, where we maybe try and pick a certain percentage of businesses within the network who are interested in starting a reformulation journey, then we could absolutely link with businesses and support you through that process. All the help is here. It's just a case of asking for it, and in terms of where to start, just by asking for help is really the first thing. We can then look at what your ingredients are, we can look at the composition of your products, and then that will really help give us a starting point and how to review you moving forward with it. So just ask for help and we can all start you on your journey.
I think it's also fair to say though, if you've got if you're really daunted by it and you really don't know where to start at all, we offer something called a product development day, which means we can come and take some of your products and remake them up in the lab for you and show you how you could actually redevelop them. And what you then learn is you can extrapolate that across the rest of your products. So for instance, if you make a sponge, we show you how to make it in one sponge, and you can then use those learnings to look at your other sponges, for instance. Or when you're looking to reduce salt in your ready meals, we can show you to do it in one, and then you can look at solutions thereafter. And those have proven pretty popular. Obviously COVID's had an impact on that because we can't bring people on site, but hopefully that will be sorted soon. But it's just really to give you an element of comfort, so you feel comfortable actually doing this kind of thing, either by yourself or with some help, really.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next question takes a slightly different take on reformulation. Is the help and advice only available for reformulation of products, or also for the creation of new products that aim to be as healthy as possible?
I unfortunately missed the start of your question. My sound is terrible. I keep breaking up today. Was that a question regarding?
It's fine if you want to turn your video off. If you turn your camera off, Joanne, if you want, that might help your connection. That might be a bit easier. The question is the help and advice only available for reformulation of products, or also for the creation of new products that aim to be healthy as possible?
I'm happy to pick that up initially. I mean, we had with
for
the
reformulation for health.
Sorry, can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, no, just that kind of wider point I was talking about before, that we've had a number of companies that were looking at reformulation, but we also had a number of companies that right from the start are creating healthy products. And we're really keen to work as a network with the whole spectrum. We really want to talk to companies that are looking at new ideas, new products, new ways of bringing it to market, as well as reformulating existing products and existing recipes. So yes, there is support and advice available through the Highland Food and Drink Innovation Network. And also, I think, as Natalie might want to talk, the Food and Drink Tech Hub is really trying to shape, if you like, the kind of assistance that companies would find of real value around that whole innovation agenda. And we're just keen to hear at the moment from companies, what are the demands, where are the interests? So yes, is a long-winded way of saying yes.
I think,
Joanne?
Sorry. In addition to people that want to do innovation projects, there are some little blocks of funding that are available via something like the 5K innovation vouchers that's offered by the Scottish Funding Council. If it's in a different product, regardless of what its health background is, you can potentially get some funding for that, and that £5,000 seems like quite a lot of money, but in university terms is sadly sometimes limiting. But what it does is it can help you get started on how to actually manufacture that, what your formulation needs to look like, and help with those. But also we offer a consultancy service, which we don't think is too expensive. But yeah, if you wanted to come and do it that way, if it's not funded, that's also possible.
Thanks. And Joanne,
yes,
do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to echo what David and Katrina have both already said. NPD and EPD are both obviously very, very different processes. In terms of the Reformulate fund that we had open, that was specifically for people altering existing products to make them healthier. So it was very much purely based on reformulation. The programme as a whole is more than open to discussing NPD challenges with business, but for myself, I'm much more focused on reformulation. Obviously, as Katrina mentioned, if a business was to get in contact and it was more of a startup business looking at an NPD project, we always advise them to maybe link with Interface or something like that to look at an innovation grant, as Katrina mentioned, and then you could be linked to the most appropriate support for that programme. But again, we're all here to help. So if there's a question, a specific question after the event, let us know, and then we can signpost you to the best person to speak to.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to come to a member of our audience now who has a raised hand. I'm going to unmute Katerina. Katerina, if you can unmute yourself at your end, that would be great. It's self-muted at your end. No. Hi, Katerina. You're still muted. I'll tell you what, we'll come back to you. We'll take another question and I'll mute you again, and we'll take another question and then come back to you. One of the questions that come in is quite a simple one, but you know, it's probably not a simple answer. How can I get access to healthier ingredients? So, coming to the panel first. Who would like of the panel to speak first? That's a good question.
I could mention that we've got access to a whole lot of supplier information for healthier ingredients. Come and ask us and we'll point in the direct direction. You'll have a very different response to whatever your goal is, but there's healthy alternatives to each of the baddies, if that was you want to use the baddie word, and we can help you a little bit appropriate to your business.
Thank you. David or Joanne or Andrea or Natalie, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, it would be remiss of me not to say that. I mean, again, one of the Highland, a lot of the Highland companies have come back to us and said, we actually don't know who else is out in our area, in our region. So one of the things we're trying to do is make it more visible, all the different companies that are in the region, what they produce, how they can collaborate. So again, it's a point to go to come to the network if you are looking for particular ingredients, as well as Katrina says, that wider kind of supplier list as well.
I think it's also worth mentioning the programme that we did for FDF recently had a whole lot of information about suppliers, etc. on that. So I think Jo, if you contact Jo, she should be able to give you the information sheets and the link to the actual slides that we did at that point as well. So that might help individual companies who want to get a starting point.
Yes, absolutely. I was just going to say that, Katrina, we do have information that we can share, but I think as well, and that's why I put the poll question in the middle of the presentation, is that your existing ingredient manufacturers may have a solution. So ask who your current suppliers are first, explain to them what your challenge is, and they may already have a solution, or they might be able to develop a bespoke solution for you. So it's always worth asking the question to your existing suppliers first. But obviously, if there's not a solution there, then the support's here either through myself and Katrina and David to help signpost you to who can help.
Thank you. What I would like to do, we've got a couple of minutes left in our webinar. Before I pass to Andrea, who's got a couple of final slides, I would like to come to each of our panelists and a 30-second answer on, if you have one takeaway for our audience of advice, what would it be? And I'll come to Katrina first.
Don't panic. It's easier than it looks.
Thank you very much. David.
Please get in touch with us at the Highland Food and Drink Innovation Network if you want to take any ideas forward in that whole agenda around food and health.
Thank you. Joanne.
Yes, much the same as everyone else. It's not difficult. Ask the right questions, speak to us. We're all here to help. We're all here to guide you, and we're all here to work together. It's not a case of you work with one or the other. We're all here to support the same goals of improving the dietary health of people in Scotland. So just pick up the phone, drop us an email, and we'll all work together to support you. That's what we're here for. And
to Natalie and Andrea.
Yeah, just the same, echoing what everyone else has said. The support is there. We're here to help, whether it's through the Innovation Network or whether it's Katrina or Joanne directly, but we're here and we're not just exclusive to high account managed businesses. We're open to everybody. So please do get in touch and we're here to help.
Okay, right, we're just going to come back to Andrea, the controls with you. You just need to show your screen. Thank you, Andrea.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. That was really, really interesting and hopefully really helpful for our audience as well, just to find out more about what's available and the breadth of expertise that is there to just tap into if you need it. So just to highlight at the end now that if there's any questions or anything you want to ask or need information on, please just get in touch via email. So the email address is here, inquiry@highlandfdin.co.uk. You can also find information on the Highlands and Islands Enterprise Food and Drink Innovation website. So just go to the HI website, look for support, and then type into the search box food and drink, and I think you'll find the information there. Just before we close, you know, and ask, if you leave the webinar, you'll be asked to give us feedback. Please take the opportunity and let us know how you found the webinar and maybe what other topics you would be interested in hearing about. And please join us for our next webinar on the 11th of March. We have Will Shue, the director and co-founder of OrganLike Limited, talking to us, and slightly different topic compared to today, but he's going to talk about safer and more effective surgery through using anatomical models and tools in surgical training and simulation. Again, very interesting topics. Looking forward to that one. But yeah, just thank you again for everyone. You know, to everyone on the panel for sharing their expertise with us today, and also to all the audience for joining us and asking really interesting questions. So looking forward to seeing you again, and hopefully you found today very useful. Thank you.
Thanks now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.